Well, actually, it is a really big deal. Argentina is a very extended country where you can find several profiles of patterns, several weather patterns in different regions, And if you go across those different regions, you will find very significant challenges. For example, 70% of Argentina is actually arid, so it's lacking water. And the rest of it is, as we know, the Pampa, which is a very productive agricultural complex. Now, in both cases, climate change will be showing significant challenges because of lack of water in some places. We do have several of the provincial capitals like Mendoza, San Juan, La Rioja that live with the water coming from the Andes. And climate change is threatening that source of water in the next years and decades. And for the Pampas, we are also facing changes in the pattern of rainfall and water availability, and that may have significant impacts in the production of the country as a whole. And then the third issue is that Argentina is a very urbanized country. We do have 90 or 90+% of the population living in big cities. The main one is Buenos Aires, where I am from. And those cities, including Buenos Aires, have been facing changes in rainfall patterns that are resulting in big floods with very negative consequences and very significant demands of infrastructure, but also heat waves in the summertime. So I think both the cities in the arid part of the country and the whole agricultural complex that is depending on water very much, and the big cities like Buenos Aires, Rosario, and Cordoba, all of them are examples of cities that will have to develop plans to deal with climate change.
And tell me about the level of research and education around climate change in your country and also at your institution. What sort of level of understanding do you feel domestically Argentine institutions are in terms of exploring the various strands of climate change and impacts?
I'm here representing the Buenos Aires Institute of Technology. I am the dean of the university, and this is the oldest university teaching engineering, technology and management, private university in the country. We are working very hard in the issue of climate change. We have realized that it is a significant issue, as I was mentioning just a minute ago. And in that sense, we are offering a new degree, a Master of Science degree, which is a binational degree, together with Germany, with the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. In order to do that degree in energy and environment, you will have to take classes both in Europe, in Germany, and in Argentina. And the idea is to come up with approaches that may be benefiting from a worldwide experience and the latest technology, but also at the same time that is appropriate for the local environment and the local conditions. Also at the Buenos Aires Institute of Technology, we do have a Center for Strategic and Sustainable Development Studies, and in that center we are paying much attention to the future of the cities. In that sense, myself, I was in charge of the infrastructure of the city of Buenos Aires as the director of infrastructure of the city for a couple of years. And we are using that experience and many other experiences from the faculty and the people in the university to try to identify what may be the best contribution universities and the educational system can do in the next years, not only to describe the issues, but also to provide appropriate solutions together with the government, the local governments, and with the private sector.
Tell me a bit about how you're working with local government then in Buenos Aires. I mean, we see here in Lima, which in many respects is a beautiful city, but the traffic is absolutely atrocious. And from my experience in many Latin American cities, it's similar. There is that struggle between people having lots of cars and roads that can't cope, and governments are investing, I guess, in bus rapid transit systems and other forms. Tell me a bit from an Argentina, Buenos Aires perspective, how are you working with government and what kind of solutions can you offer?
Yeah, that is true. I think Buenos Aires and the main cities in Argentina, also as many other cities in the world, are facing the same challenges. What we see is that there are huge promises in the technology field. So we are seeing in Buenos Aires even that the country and the companies and the governments are developing new approaches. For example, Buenos Aires has developed in the last 4 years a significant system of bike sharing, which is now very, very large and is used by several thousand people every day. But also at the same time, Buenos Aires has developed just 4 years ago a couple of BRT systems, bus rapid transit systems, that are working very well. And it's also considering approaches with electric cars in some area of the city. Now, those are the good news. The challenges are, I think, mostly in the more institutional side and in the systemic view of the issues. Climate change falls into the medium to long term type of challenges, and you need to be consistent a long time, and you need to be thinking on solutions that will require several actors to get a consensus. And those are the type of issues that are hardest to develop in our environments. So we tend to believe that universities may have a significant contribution educating people and getting some of the leaders, both from the public sector and the private sector, to fully understand and realize that if you don't include the medium to long-term views within the policies and within the main agreements on what are the type of investments that should be done, then it will be too late in the future to try to revert some of the negative consequences of climate change and also of really huge cities without the proper planning.
Final question. Just tell me, if you can, about what you think the power and the influence of universities can be in changing the way governments operate and changing the way that people think about issues like climate change. In the past year, we've seen a lot of universities join the divestment movement, deciding to ditch their fossil fuels and ditch, their holdings in oil, gas, and coal. I don't know if that's something that your institution has done, but what can you tell me about how you are working with other universities around the world, building a coalition of knowledge to try and develop people's understanding of possible technologies that can help in this address this problem?
Well, that's a very interesting question. We are doing several things as a university. As I told you, we are working with Germany very hard in this International Master of Science offer that is very, very new. It started this year. But also we have several projects regarding the oil industry in Argentina. Argentina has, as probably many of the people know already, they have a very significant resource of shale gas and shale oil. It's called Vaca Muerta. Now, that resource, if it gets developed, it will at the same time provide probably cheaper energy, but also it will mean some potential impacts in the environment. So we are already working with some other universities in different countries in developing partnerships to come up with alternatives and technological possibilities to develop that source of energy. In general, what I believe is that universities have the possibility of, first of all, educating the public opinion, educating the potential leaders of the society, but also they should be, in countries like Argentina and in developing countries, they should be taken more into the prototype and into the test of new approaches that could be done together with the university, because the university could take the risk to try new technologies and to develop new approaches, and then if they are successful, it will be easier for leaders from the private sector and from the private sector to adopt them.